Is this the Wave XLR Mark II worth the upgrade cost, or is it just worth your money in general? Now, I wasn't a massive fan of the original Wave XLR. If you recall, I had the Wave XLR dock add-on to the Stream Deck Plus. And as much as I loved the Stream Deck Plus, I really didn't have much of an interest in the XLR interface. I found the unit itself kind of underwhelming, and the software Wavelink was uninspiring. Not only that, there were actual necessary features that just didn't exist. Now, they did update it and they made it better, but still, there were some cool things happening in the software end of things with other companies, like what Beacon was doing. But I will have to say, there was an issue with all these things being aimed at gamers. No one was getting the whole package right. You see, Elgato had an okay interface, okay software. It had some issues. Beacon had amazing software and absolute crap for an interface. So will this, the Wave XLR Mark II, actually come through and finally fill that gap that gamers deserve? Let's find out. First, however, I kind of have to apologize because I feel really bad. You see, I have had this unit since before Christmas. One of the lead engineers for Elgato reached out and asked if I wanted to be a part of the testing team on this unit, and I jumped at the idea. However, a bunch of stuff kind of fell apart during and after the holidays, and the start of this year has just been an absolute slog. Now, I don't want to get into everything is unnecessary for the story, but let's just say I haven't had the ability to do my own thing. Now, I am turning over that leaf as we speak, but one of the main things that got left in the dust was this, and I am so sorry, Elgato. I really did want to be a part of that. I just didn't have the mental space to be able to participate in it. I promise I am going to do better next time if there is a next time. On top of that apology, though, I can say that I'm also getting in the Wave 3 Mark II, as well as that massive Stream Deck XL. So stay tuned for that. And if you aren't already, get subscribed so you don't miss that. Now, a quick mention of the specs here, something that definitely has had a bit of a lift. First things first is self-noise. The old unit had an EIN of neg 130 dBA weighted, very respectable. But that was at only 60 dB, and considering the unit had 75 dB of gain, well, that number only got worse as you gained up beyond 60 dB. This one now has just neg 130 dBA weighted, meaning no more 60 dB cap. And considering this thing has an extra 5 dB of gain for 80 dB in total, that's pretty impressive. So let's just get one of the biggest things out of the way immediately, and that is the onboard DSP. This was one of the biggest issues with the older version of the Wave XLR. The ability to do the processing on the unit instead of making your computer do all of the work. And that is a really big deal because while latency is something that you really can't get away from when dealing with effects, having it on board the unit makes that latency a much easier thing to deal with, trust me. But also, if your computer isn't top tier, and maybe you're already making concessions for playing on medium or low settings, the last thing you want to do is get your old faithful sweating over EQ and compression. This solves that. And at the same time, the ability to use software effects like VSTs still exist on this thing, so you can slow down your PC at will, don't worry. But that was an important feature that I know a lot of gamers wanted kept, and for good reason, as it was one of the features that separated the Wave gear from everyone else in the gaming field. Now, as for those effects that are built into the unit, you will find them to be rather familiar, especially if you're used to the Elgato gear. You should feel right at home. If you aren't, don't worry, it's pretty easy to get around and not be overwhelmed. For the beginners, I would say just use this voice tune and you will be fine. That's the little lights on the unit as well when you have it lit up. You can see them in the corner here. It indicates a bit of a sparkle. But if you are more of a tinkerer, you can still do it all yourself and jump through the EQ and compression. And let's do that right now. So let's look at the compressor. You can just turn it off or on, and you can notice the sound of my voice getting way different when I do that. We're going to turn it all on, and you can actually jump in. And this is where you can change all of the different settings for your own stuff and make your voice sound as good as you want, really. The EQ is also fantastic. Now, when you see this stuff, it's going to look pretty drastic with all the changes made. You got to remember, this is only a 3 dB shift down here, neg 3 dB up, so it's not actually impacting it. So don't be afraid of really kind of diving in and making some pretty big moves to see what it does to your voice. And it also depends on the type of microphone you're going to be using. And you can hear it here. Like, you can hear the changes this kind of stuff makes. And of course, you can change all this stuff up as much as you want, which is really cool to see. So feel free to jump into this and really play with it. And if you were a beginner, definitely you want to be trying this stuff out. And you have to remember, if you are a beginner, there's no real concern that you're going to mess things up too badly, because you can just reset everything and you are going to be just fine. And what's really great here in this top corner, you can turn on the information of each thing and what is what, so you can really make changes, and you can learn as you do it as well, which is really important about EQ, because you're never going to be able to do it until you learn how to do it yourself. And it just takes time. You just have to tinker. You have to listen. You got to hear what you're doing to your voice. So this little information box here will actually help you learn along the way, which is really, really cool. There are a couple other things we can talk about in here. You have a low cut, which is at 80 hertz. That's always on. Also, I have the clip guard on. This is stopping me from over distorting if I start screaming into the mic. Yeah, you need that. But on top of all that, there's also this voice focus here. And you're going to notice this is a software effect. It's under the software effect kind of heading. This is kind of like a built-in VST that comes along. This is run off your computer. This isn't one of those onboard DSP effects. You'll notice hardware effects, software effects. So you do have to keep that in mind. It adds latency for sure to your voice, which I know is annoying, but actually it's not annoying anymore because of the next feature. I don't know why this wasn't something that was available before, but it is amazing. Basically, this is a monitoring bypass to all software effects. So you know that massive delay you'd get when hearing your own voice in your headphones? Well, not anymore. And yeah, before anyone says anything about not needing to hear your own voice, if you want decent sounding streams or content in general, you need to monitor your own voice. It's actually super important that you're doing this. And this little button here, direct monitoring, is that solve. Such a massive quality of life improvement on this. On top of all that fun, though, this input screen is pretty straightforward. There is one thing I really want to point out, though, and that is the high-powered mode for headphones. Now, this is for high impedance headphones, and I will note that these are the Rode NTH 100s. They're only 32 ohms, and I do find a little more comfortable not having to gain up these headphones quite as much with that extra noise. Just turning on high powered mode actually is pretty decent, and it keeps a lot of that gain noise out of it. So I'll leave that up to you. I like the high powered mode on. Okay, and this is where things get really good, and it's over on the left here under mixes. Now, routing and mixing are two very different things. I don't think I've seen a design for both ever, and I definitely haven't seen it where it's this seamless. This is about as basic as it gets. Because you see, the thing about routing is you can get turned around super easy. That isn't the case here. It's simple. You see, the source is on the left. Then across the table on the top is where you send that audio or your outputs. It's so simple, I can't believe no one has ever thought of this. Now, of course, on inputs, you can have virtual channels too, as well as up to 5 outputs on the top. But then you can also control the mix on this screen for both the input and the output. And one of the coolest features here, that if you want to turn it all down, let's say we're turning our browser all the way down. Let's say our stream mix is down here and our personal mix is, let's say our personal mix is just a little bit. We're only 29%. And we are at 58%, but we want to turn it down. You're going to see the output go down like that. That is so cool. Even if the outputs are at different levels, if you turn down the master of a certain channel, it lowers them down at different ratios. This is the kind of stuff that makes a piece of gear stand out. And this is what finally combines the hardware and software elements into something that doesn't have compromises. That has been a long time coming, Elgato. Thank you. By the way, if you want to see this a touch more fleshed out, Harris on Senpai Gaming goes a touch more in depth, and he is adding more inputs and more outputs. And honestly, this is something that should be pretty simple for anyone to really dive into. So yeah, I mean, this is a pretty easy one for me. This is a great little unit for the gamer and streamer, and a piece of gear that you don't have to make excuses for. And this is what was happening. Stuff like, well, it doesn't need to work on all systems. You don't need to hear yourself. Guys, that's all cope. This, however, is the cure for that cope. Now, again, stay tuned, as I do have more content coming on the other stuff that was released. The one I am really looking forward to the most is that Stream Deck Plus XL. Also, I'm going to be breaking one of my own rules when I take a look at the Wave 3 mic Mark II. Wow, that's a lot to say. So get subscribed so you don't miss that. And of course, drop a like on this if you enjoyed it. And if there's anything else you want to see about this little powerful beast, let me know down below. Cheers, guys. And thanks for watching.